Nice.
We're exposed.
We are fully exposed. Full frontal ass podcast.
Ah!
Welcome to the Ass Podcast, everybody. ASS, Ass Podcast. That stands for Animation Success Stories. If this is your first time viewing the Animation Success Stories podcast or listening to, if you're just listening to us, what we do on this podcast is essentially we talk to animation industry professionals. We hear their stories, how they got to where they are right now in the industry, the hurdles they had to jump, the hills they had to climb, and all the rivers they needed to traverse in order to get to where they are today in the animation industry. We hear all their hardships and how they overcame them, or we just have a nice, fun story. And hopefully at the end of the day, we have some good advice for aspiring animation industry professionals, probably like you. And when I say you, I mean the listener, unless you're old and jaded and you're like, why did I make this choice? You know what? Maybe we'll inspire you to have a little bit more positivity.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Cool. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Of course, I'm here with Brian and Sabrina, as always. And Nick is on the IT. We're not seeing Nick's face today, but he's in charge of all that. He's making sure you guys are hearing us and listening to us. And today in the Ass Podcast, we have Shakira Pressley joining us live from her place, like we've been doing lately. Shakira is a writer in the animation industry, which we rarely have on the podcast, so we're super excited to have a writer in children's animation. She's written on shows like Craig the Creek on Cartoon Network. She's written on Ben 10, Netflix's Battle Kitty, and she is currently writing at Netflix on a show that we can't say because it isn't announced yet, but maybe we can pull it out of her. No, I'm joking. We won't try.
Oh, what's this? An email from Netflix? Fired. Oh,
oh wow, they're watching. So Shakira, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Still in my room, but kind of here.
Yeah. I honestly really like the digital podcasts we've been doing lately. It's been working out really well, and we've been able to do them more frequently than we were when we were trying to meet up, so this is pretty chill. The only downside is I don't know if you've ever watched our podcast before, but usually when we do it, we have like a wall of stuffed animals behind us because we're at our friend Danner's house, and he lives in this he doesn't live there. It's his annex is his
Emmy Award winning.
Oh, Emmy Award winning Danner. Yes, he just won an Emmy, which is fantastic. Is that his first Emmy, Brian?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Damn.
He's been on the Emmy-nominated shows. I think it's his first Emmy.
Shout out to Danner for winning that Emmy. And, of course, Danner, thanks so much for always letting us record in your apartment when it was available. Obviously, it's not anymore, but...
Not an apartment.
Oh, house. It was a guest house, the annex to his house. So, Shakira, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you coming into the Ass Podcast. Today, we are going to find all about your ass, and that just means your animation success stories. Do not talk to HR. Cool. So, Shakira, we're going to start off the podcast like we always do with every episode. As a writer, you might have a slightly different answer than some of the artists that are involved. But what is your first animation memory? Your very first memory of animation in your life?
Ew. So this is kind of jacked up because so it's really dumb because it's the Ghibli it's Spirited Away, and I was just talking to someone about how I had watched it on Cartoon Network, and then I didn't understand Ghibli films as a kid, and so I was like, no, not for me.
Oh, nice.
Slow, and I'm a dumb kid, and I need fast, action-paced stuff. So I didn't want to watch it, but I sat there because my brother really liked it, and I was like, I hate this, I think. And then over time, I was like, I think I'd rewatched it older now, and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, never mind, I was wrong. Little me had no taste at all. I was dumb. But
that's perfectly legitimate. I mean, those movies aren't for everybody, to be honest. And as like a little kid, sometimes they go over your head because they're kind of slow. Yeah, and they're like calming, right?
Yeah.
So, but at least you turned around and you kind of came back to it, which is nice.
I got a gun held to my head, and it's like, you haven't seen all the Ghibli movies? And I'm like, chill.
Chill out, watch Spirited Away.
So cool
So how old were you when you watched that?
Really young. I think actually I wasn't even watching it. I think my grandfather was like, a movie, and he just popped it in for me and my brother. I think it was like a trip. Like we used to take a lot of trips down to Florida from New Jersey, and my grandfather would pick us up, and he had one of those portable, like, bulky, I don't know what they were, the little watcher things. Because
like a horrible.
Was it like the DVD thing that flipped?
It was like the DVD thing you could hook on the back of your chair.
Oh yeah.
He would make us watch, like, he had, I don't know how he had, I know it was a rip, but he also had like Dark Crystal that he would make us watch a lot. I don't know, my grandfather's a weird guy.
That's cool.
I wish my
But like
grandparents
that, and like I feel like I don't really, it's kind of weird. I don't feel like I remember a lot of animated series as a kid. And the ones that I go back to, the ones that I'm still addicted to today, like Courage the Cowardly Dog, which definitely wasn't one of my first, but it's one of the ones that I still remember regardless of when it came out. Like Fillmore came out before then, Recess came out before then, but my brain always goes to that era, maybe because my memory got better once I got older and I could remember them and take them in easier.
It probably it affected you the most, so it's burned the most in your memory because it had such a lasting impact on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Courage was cool, man. Courage, John Dilworth, they like tried all different types of mediums in that show. It was a really fun experimental show. So it definitely left a lasting impact on a lot of people. That's pretty neat. So as a little kid, were you always geared towards? You just said you don't remember too much, animated series that you watched as a little kid, but were you geared more towards watching live action stuff as a kid, or were you always a fan of animation?
No, I think it was just one of those weird kids where my tastes were so specific that if something didn't meet it, I was really upset and didn't want to watch it. Like I would but I would love something and then I would watch it repeatedly. So like things like Treasure Planet or Tarzan. Oh my God, Tarzan. I feel like I had that movie on repeat a lot, and I think I used to annoy the crap out of my mom with it. Like, she'd be like, if I have to hear like this guy yelling one more time and swinging on vines, like I'm done.
You'll
but
be
like
in my heart. Isn't that from that movie?
Yeah.
She
hated that movie. I think even now, between The Little Mermaid and Tarzan, my mom will not watch them anymore. She doesn't want to look at them because I feel like between me and my little sister, they were just played to death. But like, I love Tarzan. Even to this day, I'll rewatch Tarzan over and over again.
That's pretty interesting. I feel like we asked that question to so many people, and a lot of times it's like those early Disney movies, like you said, Little Mermaid. But I feel like we've never gotten Tarzan or Treasure Planet. That's a pretty unique answer.
I think it's because where I grew up, we had skate parks and stuff. So the idea of skating anywhere, and like they used to show the Tarzan feature behind the scenes thing a lot on Disney
Channel.
And
yeah.
Whenever I would see that, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
I'm also going to go on the limb and suggest that Shakira might be the youngest person we've had on the podcast.
I've kind of.
Oh, how old are you, Shakira?
Old.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
Is it Ruth? Sorry,
I'm already putting the math together when you're talking about Spirited Away on Cartoon Network. I'm like,
He's like,
around that time, right?
Yeah, I guess if you are a little younger, I guess that makes sense because I guess Tarzan was on probably when you were on that in the impressionable age, Tarzan and Treasure Planet.
The Tarzan came out, I think, like 90, maybe 98, and Treasure Planet was 99, maybe early 2000.
I was really young when those came out then. I was probably watching those before I wasn't even preteen age yet.
That makes sense. Yeah, those were good movies. Those are underrated Disney movies, I feel. People don't usually bring them up. Like, so as far as
appropriately rated.
To be honest, I can't even recall Treasure Planet. Like, I think Atlantis is an underrated Disney film.
Oh,
that movie I like a lot.
I feel like my top for a really long time when I was younger was Road to El Dorado, Prince of Egypt,
Mine too.
And Tarzan. And then Treasure Planet was good until the third act. I have problems with the third act.
Yeah,
and in my opinion, it all has to do with Finn. It all has to do with Finn.
Oh man. We have to have a podcast where we're just dissecting Treasure Planet. As a professional writer, we can go back and break down the 3-act structure in Treasure Planet and how it slowly falls apart over the course of the third act.
Of the third act, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Look back on it and you'll be like, yeah, the beginning of this is pretty solid. The stuff with his dad, the whole montage, but like, solid. Then you get to that third act, and he gets to the island. And you're like, oh no, I hate this.
I think I remember hearing that movie had specific production issues. But I remember watching it like later. I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember watching it later and just like, man, it started so strong and just got so weak. And I was like, right after college for me, so I was specifically aware of that.
Yeah. So it seems like the first 2/3 of Treasure Planet were a big inspiration to you, which is cool. Yeah. And so yeah, Road to El Dorado is great. I love that one. And then Prince of Egypt, I actually just rewatched like maybe 2-3 weeks ago. That movie's so good. It's so
good.
It's like beautifully animated. It's like so sad, and it's like the music is actually very impactful. I forgot how good it was.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
I feel like
the animated feature, if I recall.
Yeah. It was. I feel like that was also like a one that was forced upon me by family. It was like you get to watch Moses and you get to watch Prince of Egypt because they're religious, and it's like, all right. Yeah.
Right. So you grew up in a religious household?
Not my mom, just my grandfather was a pastor.
Oh.
So when I would go with him for the summer, it was like, cool, at least 3 times out of the week you're going to be in church. And I'd go to Bible study. Like I had like the kids side that was like fun, and you basically just color pictures of God. And then you get to watch Moses and Prince of Egypt in there, and everyone else is like in the main building doing real adult stuff. But yeah, once I got past Bible study, I was like, oh no, I hate church.
So do you think those movies had an impact on like your writing style at all?
I wouldn't doubt it. I feel like I don't know, I feel like honestly, the more I started drifting into like preteen lifestyle, I started watching a lot more anime. And so then I started watching things like I think even a little bit before preteen, because I'm also aging myself, Brian. When Adult Swim started playing anime, and it was like Trigun and Wolf's Rain and like Samurai Champloo, like all that stuff they started playing, I was like, ho, forget Ed, Edd n Eddy. What is this? Like it changed everything. I feel like
that's a legendary lineup, by the way.
Oh, Trigun.
Yeah. Oh, Trigun used to come on. Oh, it was all bets off. Just
yeah, for sure. I mean, the way stories are told on anime is like, I feel like much different than Western animation. So I'm sure that had a impact on you, as far, even if you didn't realize, probably subconsciously on like your writing style and methods to an extent. So
yeah.
So out of curiosity, did you, when you were like going through grade school, middle school, high school, were you thinking to yourself, oh, I want to be a writer, I want to write? Was that something you discovered later, like maybe when you went college age, or is that something you always had an inclination for?
It was kind of a fluke in a way. It was like I had always liked writing because we moved around a lot, and like when you move to a new place, you don't have furniture, you don't have your TVs and stuff hooked up. And so we would just we'd have to wait for stuff to get to us, or like wait for my mom to buy stuff before we could do anything, until, handheld games came out. But, sometimes you even have to wait like electricity to get hooked up at that place, if you move to a new state. So it was just something like my brother, like he's an artist, he would draw and I would write, and that was just kind of the thing that we liked. And I look back at my stories now and they're very, like, you can tell what my inspirations were, like Tales of Symphonia, like stuff we were playing at the time. And through moving, we ended up moving to Florida, and this teacher came up to me and he took away, I used to write in these composition notebooks, and he took it away, and I was like, oh crap. He's like, come see me after class. And I was like, crap, because he saw me passing it around to kids. Yeah. And what I would do is I would write it. I'd have my brother do like the chapter beginning, like picture, and then I would give it to kids at school and be like, oh, read it. Here's the new chapters out, like exclusive. And my teacher confiscated it. And then after class, I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. Like, I'm so screwed. He's going to tell my mom, I'm going to get a beating. Crap. And then he's like, so do you like writing? I just read this. This is pretty good. Like, this is like, I think 6th grade. He's like, this is pretty good. Like, do you like writing? And I was like, yes. Like, is this a trap? What do you want? And he's like, oh, you should go ahead and you could be a writer when you grow up. And I was like, robots don't do that? I thought robots wrote TV. Like, he's like, who do you think writes novels and stuff? I was like, I never thought about that. I'm in the 6th grade, dude. And he's like, yeah, you could write for television if you don't want to write books. Like, you can write movies. He was like, you can newspapers, people write that, like all this different stuff. And I was like, I guess I never thought that there was I knew people were making it, but I guess I never had thought that deep into it about how it actually got made.
Yeah, for sure. As a kid, you don't think of all the different steps. Like, I just see the end product. I'm sure the actors act and there's a camera guy that says action, but you don't think about, there's people sitting in a room for like a couple weeks brainstorming, and then there's a guy that writes a script for a month. Like that.
Yeah, like even comics. It's like my grandfather would give me a lot of DC and Marvel comics, and in my head I was just like, oh yeah, one person probably does that entire thing. I didn't think about, there's people that ink it. There's people who do the initial sketches. There's people who do the lettering. I didn't think that far. So yeah, when he came to me, he was like, yeah, so you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. He started giving me like writing prompts. Like, he'd give me a picture and be like, write like a whole page-long story. And then I kind of just stuck with that after even I moved from there. Like, I feel really bad all the time because I think about that story and I'm always like, I don't remember that teacher's name. And he like literally is the reason I became a writer, and I don't remember who he was.
Shout out to Mr. E.
Mr. someone from Lee Middle School in Fort Myers, Florida. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's Sabrina.
Like a story that like a lot of artists have. Like, they always like get caught or get in trouble drawing in class and stuff. It's like, imagine if all teachers paid attention to what kids were actually like enjoying doing at their desks, like creating, like how if they like encouraged that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think about it now, and I'm like, I wonder how many people, like super talented people, just never went into anything creative because they didn't have someone like come up to them and be like, you could do this, right? Like, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's definitely a shame. Yeah, it's a shame in our education system because we always teach how to, like, basically our education system comes from the fact we make people effective factory workers. We're not teaching people to pursue their interest and gearing their educational experience from like grade school all the way to high school about that experience too. So like, we're often behind on the art side. If you compare ourselves to like French artists, where there's like, oh, you're going to be an artist, we're going to train you all the way through. So by the time they get to like college, they're already mastered. And
yeah.
The rest of us are like, we get to college and then we got to learn everything immediately.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that guy seemed to really have a profound impact on you. So, I mean, that's great that you had that person in your life. And what I find interesting is that even after you moved, you still continued the same kind of writing prompt thing, right? Where you just you kept writing even after that guy wasn't in your life. What kind of like prompts did he give you? Like, what did he give you, and then what did you do? And was that part of your assignment, or was it just like extra?
Yeah, so this was like an English class. So what I would do is just kind of, I would finish my work, and most of the time I would end up writing in that composition notebook, and that's what got me in trouble. So he was like, wait, so you actually do your work and everything, like, you're good in this class. And I was like, yeah. So basically I would finish the work, he would take it and grade it and give it back to me, and I'd be like, okay, cool. And then he would give me like just a sheet of paper. It was like, a regular piece of paper with a small picture at the top. And sometimes it could be anything from a unicorn in a magical looking fantasy land, or it would be a car in like the 1920s, just like in front of a building. He'd just be like, okay, like, just do whatever you want, write a full story out of it. Yeah, and sometimes you give me sentences or phrases and be like, okay, your character's name is Jim. He is in space. He works on the moon. Write a full story. And I'd have to do like, I could do 1 page. That was the minimum, but it would just be like, keep going as long as you can. Keep writing a story. And then he would take it by the end of the week.
And how long did you usually write? Did you usually write like more than a page?
Yeah, I definitely did. I feel like most of the time it ended up being more like 5. Like I think I'd write like a page a day because I'd write usually in his class. Because once I got home, I lived with my grandfather at the time. He was super strict, and he was like, "You're gonna learn an instrument. You're gonna learn a different language. You're going to read books. You're gonna do homework. You're gonna do chores." Like he's very strict. So I wouldn't have had writing time unless I was like, "This is homework." Like freedom writing time. And then also some of the stories they weren't really personal, but they felt personal. So I was like, I don't want my grandfather to read my stories. And, you know, as a kid, you kind of put a lot of your personal business into your stories. When you're young, you don't realize you're doing it, but that's how it is. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want him to know that he's the character in this. And
Especially when you're in 6th grade, you're like going through a lot of changes. And I'm sure you're writing about like crazy stuff that's going on in your head. And yeah, maybe your grandfather is like, you know, a metaphor for your grandfather is like, I don't know, some kind of troll under a bridge or something like that.
Yeah. So it's like, it's like, please don't read this. I just wait. I would write it. I'd finish my homework as fast as I could in his class or my classwork. And then I would write the rest of the class and try to get however much done until the bell rung.
That's cool. That's really neat that your teacher was able to do that for you. Did you write all the way up through high school? Were you always, after that point, were you just constantly like writing?
Yeah. I still have like, my mom sent me like, you know, New Jersey, there's a lot of floods. My mom had somehow collected all of the stuff I've ever written, like all my books. She gave me a few of them. They have water damage because there was a flood. I can't remember whatever flood caused Seaside Heights to go under.
Sandy, maybe?
I think it was Sandy. But yeah, like she lost a bunch of like our old school stuff and a bunch of old books. But she sent me the few that weren't messed up, and it's fun getting to go through them. But I kept going through high school, and then I think I did like online comics for a while.
Oh, nice. You mean you wrote online comics, or?
Yeah, I would write the online comics, and then my brother would do the art for me.
Neat. So you guys had a webcomic together, is that it?
Name of the series.
It was not good. It was
the name of the series.
The series was Please Don't Ever Look It Up. I have a secret DeviantArt that I never thought anyone would find, that I would update, and it was on a site called Drunk Duck, and we would upload our comic there. And then one of my friends here, I was telling him like, oh yeah, we used to run a comic, it was really bad, and he's like, this you? And I was like,
wow.
I'm like, how did you even find that? Yeah.
Now that's our job. We have to find that before the interview's over.
Good luck. It's not my name. My name is never attached to it. So good luck. I don't know how he even found it. He like searched hard.
Impressive. I'm impressed by that guy.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. So you always had some type of creative writing outlet, it seemed, all the way up through high school. When did the spark go off in your head, like, I want to do this as a profession and I want to make money from it?
Honestly, I think it was when that teacher came to me. He was like, yeah, this is a profession. I was like, cool, sold. And I just kept doing it. And then I think like the more I got older and got teen angsty and listened to more Paramore, I was like, yeah, I gotta keep writing more stories. I got so many edgy stories no one's heard before. And then I guess like when I got to high school, I was like, okay, I have to focus on getting good grades, which no one actually told me this because I didn't, of course, have a writer in the family or anyone creative really who like successfully made it in the industry or any industry. So I thought like the plan was like, okay, I have to go to college. So I have to get like, I was doing like AP classes and I was going to like a private school where I skipped a grade so that I could, like I was trying to be like the brainiest kid, the smartest kid, just so I can go to college and be a writer. School was so expensive. Number one, I went to the Art Institute. Let me tell you, when yes, fellow Art Institute. I'm waiting for the one in Atlanta to close so I don't have to pay my loans back. I was like, please. I want it to close. So many of them are closing, not that one.
Did you graduate from there?
No. Okay, so listen, I had 3 jobs in college. I worked 3 different places. I worked at a Cold Stone / Blimpies. I worked at a Five Below as a manager, and I worked at a Sweet Tomatoes, which is like a all-you-can-eat buffet. I had 3 jobs. I was a manager at one of them, and I still could not afford to pay rent and stay in school, and I saved $3,000, and I came in with it, and they were like, yeah, you need to pay this much before we can let you back, because, you know, you don't have enough money to even be here in the first place. I'm like, cool, thanks for letting me in. I go in with the 3,000, I give them the money, I make the payment, and they're like, oh, but you still can't come back. And I was like, what? They're like, you need to pay more. And I was like, but I just raised $3,000. I'm doing this all on my, they're like, no. So I was like, cool.
Wow.
Cool. So I just, they wouldn't let me finish without more money. And I was like, well, I'm not going to keep doing this and giving you guys money for you to not let me come back. Yeah. So then I just started doing like internships and stuff with people. And I was like shooting. Teachers that really liked me and saw potential in me at that school started giving me like freelance work. So I was like shooting like Marvin Gaye tribute concerts. I was like a EPK cinematographer and producer for Def Jams in Atlanta for a short amount of time, working with their new artists. And I was doing like very random, I was shooting like helping with pilots for Disney and stuff, and just a mess. I was just doing anything because I was like, I want to get into writing television. How do I do this? And the only animation thing, especially in Atlanta, was like Turner. And I think the only show that was being made there was maybe, I don't know, actually. There wasn't a lot going on.
Archer would have been there. Yeah.
Yeah, Archer.
Oh, Archer.
Yeah.
So, how many years did you end up going to the Art Institute before you decided to start intro? Was it just the one, or like half?
No, I think I was nearly 3 years in. I had to think my last year, and they were like, no. I was like working 3 jobs and trying to pay them, and then they were like, the last year I was like, please, they're like, no, you can't come back. You got to pay us X amount of money. And now
we'll all cross our fingers and close this down.
If you're hearing this, God, please close down the location in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's $100,000 to go to that damn school, and the payout for it is stupid. Like you got to where you are today because you worked your butt off, not because of what the school taught you. I bet, right?
Yeah, I didn't even get to, funny enough, any of my screenwriting classes. So, like, at Art Institute, they make you take all these like painting classes and digital production and Photoshop stuff that I would not need as a screenwriter. And they make you take all these unnecessary stuff and these prerequisites that they told you didn't have to take, like math and English and stuff. Yeah. And then your last 2 years, you get to actually work with the stuff that you wanted to do. Yeah. So I didn't even get to take screenwriting classes before they were like, you can't come back. And I was like, okay. So then I just started reading scripts. Like I would find scripts online as best as I could, which is really hard because a lot of places don't post them. Yeah. I'd find scripts and I'd download them and I'd print them out and I'd just read how everybody else was writing their scripts.
Oh, wow. So and then DIY ethics over here, just figuring it out on your own.
Yeah, sitting there being like, okay, what's the page count? Like, how many pages is one scene? Mm-hmm. Like, how do they write this?
What's that, Sabrina?
Do you ever read music at all, like, for fun, too? I don't know, because I feel like that's like a really accessible kind of material that is written kind of in scripting format.
Well, what was it? I missed what you asked. Did you ever read what?
Oh, did you ever read musicals? Because like the actors, they like, I don't know, like I remember my sister had like the whole play of Annie or something. Yeah. And that was like the first time I ever saw how like a script was written, but it was like a play. Yeah. Like, I don't know, did you ever read those?
Yeah, my school, when I was in the 6th grade, I don't know why a 6th grade production put on this show, but they did Chicago.
Risky.
For 6th graders. It was, I think, 12-year-olds? I don't know. Jersey's weird. Yeah, so they put on Chicago, and they gave us the script, and I was like, oh, this is what a script looks like? Interesting.
Oh, so that was your first time seeing a script, 6th grade, huh?
Yeah, it was my first time, and I was like, cool, I now know what one looks like. And then I started writing in my books the way a script was done. And I didn't know correct formatting and stuff until I got to college and I started using Google to be like, what's the correct format? Because I didn't have, like, my school was highly against using anything for Celtics. Like, if we did a short film and we had to give the teacher the script, they were like, if you use Celtics, you're going to get an automatic F. And it's like, but they're all pretty much the same. They're like, no, Celtics is 1 inch. like too wide for the format of a script, and if you were in the real industry, they would throw your stuff away. And then I looked those teachers up, and I was like, "You've never worked in the industry, so that's fine."
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can say for sure that I know people that use Celtics that work in the industry. So it's kind of. So I have a question for you. Going back for a second, so you said teachers saw potential in you and they gave you internships. So obviously you said you didn't get your screenwriting classes yet. So what kind of potential do you think those teachers saw in you that made them want to give you the internship chances?
I think it was just, I've always been, people can even tell you now, I do what's considered the most. And I am like the person who I'll be in the lab 24 hours. Like I would try to do, I learned how to use Maya and Blender and stuff like that so I can do 3D animated projects by myself. And I tried to learn how to do modeling so I could do short films by myself. I would shoot short films every weekend just so I knew how to run a production and see what it's like to be, I guess, a leader and in charge of those. And I would end up doing like all these different things. And then I would try to do short films and I would put them in the contests. I only won once, and I feel like it was super lucky, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But like things like that, I guess they were just kind of noticing, and they would notice that I would be writing stories on my own. And like I would be writing things and I'd come to them and be like, hey, like I know, because some teachers taught more than one thing. Like some teachers taught like various classes because Art Institute is just, they don't really have money to pay people. So they're like, oh, this person does Photoshop and screenwriting or something like that. So I would go to them and I'd be like, hey, I know that you also teach that class. I'm not in it yet, but would you read the script? And then they would like give me notes and like send it back to me, or like they'd watch my short films and then like give me notes on editing and like how to do things better.
Sure. Yeah. So one thing that I'm seeing here is you took a lot of initiative without people with just on your own. Like you took personal initiative to find the teachers that taught screenwriting, even though you weren't in the class, to learn how whole productions are run, even though, you know, you weren't a part of them yet, to like learn how the actual script was written. So like some point of advice for people that are watching that want to be writers or anything really is like personal initiative, not waiting for somebody to push you into something and just doing it yourself, you know, finding out what you need to do and doing it without somebody lighting a fire under your butt. Some people need that fire, but I mean, I feel like you just took that initiative immediately.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I had to learn too, because I feel very much towards the beginning I was like, no, if I just do things the right path, like I have to do this a specific way, and then all the hard work will pay off, and like someone will give me a job. Like that's just how it works. I'll just automatically get hired for doing the work. And then I realized, oh, this isn't like, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. You could do all the work and people still might not ever notice you. You might not ever get hired. And so even now, like I work in animation, my first job was like one of my first jobs I got because I was pitching to a studio. Like even Netflix, I got my job at Netflix because I pitched to them. I made multiple pitch Bibles and I went to various studios and I went to them with a pitch just so they knew that I could write various things. And I didn't want them to pick up anything. I just wanted them to know that I could write various types of series. And I wrote a pilot for each pitch Bible. And then based off of a pitch Bible that I pitched to Netflix, one of the execs were like, well, we're going to pass on the show, but I know a show that's looking for a writer. And I went in there and they ended up liking my samples just because I had so many, because I was like prepared, which is something that's super important. I have so many friends that are like, yeah, I really want to be a writer, but they have not one script written, which is the biggest like technical foul. Right. You gotta write a script. You have to have.
You gotta write.
Yeah. So what scripts you had? They were all original idea scripts?
Yeah, they were all original pilots. I had one spec script just in case, and I used that one mostly for like the ABC Disney writing program or the Nickelodeon writing program. Sure. And I would submit specs to them each year, so I would have one new spec script to submit to those every year. But then in the meantime, I was working on my own stuff.
Yeah.
Explain what a spec script is for the audience, because a lot of people aren't going to know that terminology.
Also, how did you learn about these terms and like about the process of like submitting this stuff? Like, where did you learn this stuff from?
Well, okay, for the first question, what's a spec script versus an original? An original script is basically your own idea, it's your own story, all new original characters, all new original plot. You're just basically coming up with your own story and giving that to someone. A spec script is a script that is based off of an already existing IP, like an already existing show. So a spec script would be like, oh, I want to write Bob's Burgers episode with all the characters in this world that they already have built, and then you give that to somebody if they ask for a spec script.
What spec did you write? What shows?
I wrote one for a Nickelodeon show called The Thundermans, which I wrote because I thought for the Nickelodeon writing program that they wanted shows that were theirs, which was honestly, if anyone is interested in going into the Nickelodeon writing program, don't pick a show like Loud House or anything like that just because it's their show. Write whatever show that you want to write that they give you on that list that they put out, because they're not specifically just looking for their show because it's on their network. Like I have friends who wrote stuff like Bob's Burgers spec script and got hired for the Nickelodeon writing program. So don't just write something that's theirs. I've also done Steven Universe. I did a Parks and Rec spec script. Nice. I think that's it. I think I applied 3 years in a row, and then I was like, the fourth year I was like, I'm not gonna submit again. I don't think I'm gonna get in. And then I ended up getting hired on my first job, so I was like, oh, I don't need to submit again. Yeah, I got lucky.
So go on Sabrina's question. You were asking like, how'd you find out about this stuff, right, Sabrina?
Yeah, like the process of like submitting things and what to submit and all of that, and then like what they look like in the format and all that stuff. Like, how did you figure out the works?
Honestly, 100% honest, Google. I would just type in, what is the correct format for a script? And then it'll tell you the dimensions that your script needs to be. Or I would type in, there's a lot more programs now besides just Celtics, and like Final Draft is like industry standard program for writing scripts. But it's very expensive. So if you can't afford that, there's things like Writer's Duet that I found just by Googling and being like, what are some good writing softwares for script writing? And Writer's Duet is pretty good, and it's super, you can use it for free. But there are certain aspects that you can pay to have, which is really good too. I'm
going to write that one down. Is it Writer's Duet? Is that what you said?
Yeah, WRITE, RSDUET, Writer's Duet. And you can even write with other people. Like if they're in another room or another computer, you guys can write at the same time. You can create new scripts in there. You can it exports to Writer's Draft or Final Draft. So if you have Writer's Duet and someone's like, hey, can you give me that in a Final Draft? Like you can just send that to them and export it as that, or a PDF or Word, whatever format.
And it's a free program that it's like you can pay for higher versions of it, but it's free standard.
It's free standard.
It's a good advice to aspiring writers right there. Writers Duet. I never heard of that one before.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. I used to use Adobe's, but I guess not enough people were using it. They switched to Final Draft, and Adobe canceled theirs, which sucks. I lost a lot of scripts because they hold it all online.
Oh, that sucks, man.
Yeah, but Writer's Duet, you can download it, or you can just have the browser. You can have it in the browser.
So I have a question for you about. So you were in AI. Is it called Art Institute? Is that what it's called, right?
Yeah, Art Institute.
So you were in the Art Institute for 3 years while you were learning and kind of getting a feel for what. I guess you didn't take any writing classes, but you were learning about other stuff in the industry. And then you started doing random odd jobs of whatever interning that your teachers would throw at you. So were there ever any writing internships that you had, where somebody asked you to write something for them, as far as I don't even know what a writing internship would be. That's why what would that be?
Honestly, there's not really anything. There's you basically become a PA, and then you work your way up from PA, and then you might get lucky to become a script coordinator, which is basically sitting in the room and taking notes most of the time. And if you're lucky, they'll throw you an episode, and you might get a freelance episode, and maybe also get a staff writing position after that. It's also, people should keep in mind that it's different through animation and live action. Like, being a story editor in animation is great. That's like the highest you can go in writing terms. Being a story editor in live action is not the same thing. Like, there's different roles and definitely different pay.
What's a story editor do in live action?
Pretty much the same thing. It's just like not as much power. Like, there's other writers above you, essentially. I've never written anything live action. I've just been told this from my former story editor, who's like, yeah, I used to do live action. He used to work on Scrubs and stuff. And he's like, yeah, it's different. Like, the roles are different.
Because I know for story editor animation, you basically come up with like the whole plot of the season kind of thing, right? Is that more or less what the story editor would do?
No, the story editor, I think, just kind of mostly determines, like, they help the creator usually has what they want in mind, and they already have it usually, especially in the pitch Bible, like what they want and what their vision is for the entire series.
Okay.
And the season too. And then the story editor kind of just makes that happen for them. Like, they make it happen, and then they kind of help to divvy up who's writing what with the staff writers. Like I know on one show that I wrote on, it was based off of like, basically the creator would be like, oh, I specifically want this. Like, I want this to happen in the story. I know that I want this in the story. Like, I don't know. I want a giant salamander to come from the sky. I know that's what I want the finale to be. And the story editor would be like, okay, well, how do we have that happen logistically? Like, how are we going to actually put that in the story, have it make sense and have it flow correctly and have all the story arcs where you want them to be and the character arcs where you want them to be by the end. And then it's like, okay, well, I know this person writes good action, so maybe they should be the person to write the salamander falling from the sky and the sequence of them fighting it. And then this person's good at drama, so I'll give them this episode. And they basically just sit there and help go through and make those ideas come together and make sense.
So they basically see the whole picture. They get the tidbits from the creator. They see the whole picture. They kind of lay it out, and then they pick the people. They say, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. You guys are the ones to make it shine.
Yeah, and then also go to a lot of like the board handout meetings, and they sit in on like handing out episodes to the board artists, and if any of the board artists have any questions about the episode, they help them with that, or they can give notes on your boards and like, oh, okay, this is good, but like this doesn't land in this part of the story, or this important item needs to be in this episode because of continuity, and because we have it in episode 10 that they do this, so we have to show it here, or it won't make sense. Stuff like that. Like, they keep continuity and they make sure everything fits together.
Interesting. That's cool. So right now you're a writer. Would you ever want to be a story editor?
Yeah. I've been offered story editor positions, but I don't know yet. But I think it'd be cool. It's kind of nerve-wracking because it is sitting there and kind of taking what the creator wants and making sure that you're doing what they want while also making this super fleshed out, well cared about story. And then sitting there and editing other people's work and knowing what lines to punch up and what needs to be gotten rid of. And it's a lot of work, but it'd be fun. Like
meticulous little nuances of what works, what doesn't, what sets up what later kind of thing. So you really have to have your mind wrapped. Like a script, like a writer will have to just be in that one episode and make sure that episode has the right 3-act structure and has the proper character arcs and all that jazz. But the story editor needs to take a step back and look at it broader perspective, it seems.
Like, there, a lot of me being on Battle Kitty was like, I would write my episode and then I would send it to my story editor and then turn around and just wait for him to read it and give me notes on it and be like, this is what you need to change. Take this out. This joke is funny, but I already know our creator's sense of humor. Change it to something more like this. And I'd be like, okay. Because it's basically like mind reading what the creator's going to want. And me as a writer, sometimes I'm just like, oh man, this is going to be great. And it's like, well, actually, this goes better with what the character would do. And this is what I know the creator's going to like. And it's like, okay. And then I kind of, it helps the writers too, because you kind of start getting a sense for what your creator wants in the first place. This writing for someone else is essentially figuring out what their tastes are and what they want.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Have to have like a special like connection to the creator, because how does that work with mind reading?
I feel like we had enough meetings where a lot of creators from different shows will sit in with you and they'll be like, I don't know, I feel like over time there's just like this rapport that's built with them where you kind of figure out what they like and what will make, like when I worked in Craig the Creek, the creators are usually, especially Ben, is usually just like, he's just like, I can't tell sometimes. And my whole thing when I would write outlines would be to see if I can make him laugh. And sometimes it's delayed. He'll be like, yeah, that's funny. And I'm like, yes, I did it. So it's like, you get like a certain rapport, and then you kind of start to realize, what are they going to like? What are they going to like? But then think that it doesn't fit the show. And sometimes you have to be totally okay with just throwing certain things away, which is every writer definitely get used to. Because I know a lot of writers that are like, I don't understand why they want to take that out. And it's like, it's their show. They have a vision. You got to take it out.
I guess a good word of advice is you got to be able to kill your darlings sometimes.
Kill your darlings.
Yeah.
Sometimes literally.
Yeah.
So, how did you land your job in the industry? What was your journey?
So I think it was my brother, like I said, he's an artist. He had a comic book, and the whole family was like, oh, we're going to fly to Emerald City Comic Con to support him at his booth. And I was like, well, I'm here. I'm at Comic Con. I've never been to Comic Con before. And I was like, I'm just going to walk around. So I start walking around Artist Alley. And then I see this guy, and he's drawing all these classic Cartoon Network characters, but primarily Generator X. And I was like, that's pretty cool. What is this? And I was like, stopping and like talking to this guy, and he's telling me all about his art and like his influences. We start talking about all these superhero characters that we like. I'm like gushing about all the shows I grew up watching, like Ben 10 and all this other stuff. And he's like, oh, well, that's really cool. He's like, it's exciting. Like, what do you do? Sorry, I didn't ask. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to be a writer. I just moved to LA not too long ago. But right now I'm just working at a sunglass hut. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, my company's always looking for freelancers to help break into the industry. So if you're interested, like, email me some samples and we can see if it works. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I take his card and I go back to my brother's booth, and I'm like, sure, everyone in LA is showrunner, producer, famous person, sure. I'm like, that's bull crap. Like, he's a made up person. And then I Google him, and it's like, he's actually one of the Man of Action. And the creator of like like Ben 10 and Generator X, and I'm just sitting there like, oh no,
because no one would be drawing Generation Rex otherwise. It's such an obscure show.
Yeah,
it's
I feel
an
like
obscure show. I guess.
Yeah, it's obscure. Like, not a lot of people know or have watched it, and a lot of people who I know have is because of the crossover with Ben 10.
Yeah, I remember when Generator Rex came out. I didn't give it a shot. I should go back and revisit it. But I remember that show. I remember thinking it looked similar to Ben 10.
Yeah, it's the same person. And then their Man of Action also did like Big Hero 6 and God, I can't remember. There's that cool comic with the girl with the bunny ears and the giant hammer. It had a movie a while ago too, but that's also them.
Manu.
I have no clue what it's called. The girl who slays giants or something. No. It is pretty cool. It's a comic book that got made into a live action adaptation.
Is it Godland? No, not Godland. I'm just looking at all his comics. Oh, I Kill Giants?
I Kill Giants. That's what it's called.
There it is. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's them too.
Yeah, it's on their page. It is. That's them. Joe Kelly, yeah. That's cool. That's awesome. So you ended up getting your first job by going to a convention. What convention was it?
Emerald City Comic Con. Oh. I do not recommend anyone just going up and bothering poor creators for jobs, but that was a complete accident, and it was a very lucky one.
Because you literally were just like saying like, oh, this is cool, and like you were speaking about what you're passionate about. That's authentic,
Yeah.
It wasn't, hey, look at me. It was, you were talking about your passion. And I think that's like, people can sense sincerity, people can sense when you're phony, and people can sense when you're real. And he could probably sense that, oh, this girl is real. But I know,
Or desperate.
What was that, Brian?
Yeah, and desperation to avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can smell desperation a mile away. So Shakira, out of curiosity, between the time of you getting your first job, which we'll get into in a second. And like when you said you were working at a sunglass hut out here in LA, and I know you were doing some internship for a while, like after you finished your internships and you were doing these odd jobs, what was going through your head? Like how long did it take you? What was that period like? Did you have any doubts in your head about maybe you're making the wrong decision? And how did you get over that hurdle?
Oh yeah, I thought I was screwing up for the longest because like I said, I'd been raised that like, oh, if you go to school and you go to college, like if you don't go to college, you're gonna screw up. Like you're gonna work retail the rest of your life, and you're just gonna be miserable the rest of your life. And I was like, well, I guess it's just not an achievable dream. But then I was like, no, I don't want to quit that easy. Like that's just me making excuses and being afraid. And then I what happened was like it was just all in my head. Yeah, I ended up moving out here I think like 2016 or so. And I was like working, at first I was working in the Warner Brothers lot, which only I think made it hurt so much more because a lot of people, like celebrities would come through there through the tour. I was like working in the, that retail and tour department. And like all these celebrities would come in, people from Warner Brothers Animation would come in, like all these different people. And I'm like, God, your jobs are so cool. And I'm working on the lot and I'm so close. And I still feel like I'm so far away from ever writing anything professionally. And it just kind of sucked. But then like I got laid off from there, and then I was seriously like, oh, I'm screwed. I don't even have a job anymore. Like I can already afford to live in California in the first place, and now I'm like even more screwed because I got laid off. And then I started working at a Skechers and a sunglass hut, and I was like, this is it. This is where I die. This is it. And then I kept writing in between just because it was fun. And I didn't want to give up hope so easily. And I just was kind of just doing whatever. I was just kind of writing whenever I could after work and in between hours, lunch breaks and stuff.
Were you writing scripts at that point or just personal writing?
No, I was just writing scripts. As soon as college happened, I was writing nothing but scripts after that.
Was it all your own stuff at that point?
Yeah, it was all my own stuff. And Specs, of course, occasionally, yeah.
Nice. So even this doubt in your head, since I guess you were passionate about this, while you were going through these kind of this turmoil and like, oh shit, I made a bad decision. What am I doing with my life? You kept writing. So I think that's important for somebody that's going through that. Like, even if you're going through that doubt and you're going through that time of like, oh, what decision? Why did I make these decisions? I made a bad decision, and you're kind of doubting yourself. Keep doing what you're passionate about. If you're really passionate about it, you're gonna keep doing it, you know. And I think that'll keep a little kick.
I think another thing is to take away the time limit, because I kept telling myself that I needed to be a certain place by the time I was a certain age, and then that's kept screwing me over. And then every time, like I would, like of course, like I wasn't all like, yeah, I'll just keep going like the whole time. Like I would have like panic attacks and like I'd cry a lot and just be like, why did I do this to myself? I should have became an architect. Like. A lot of it was just, I was a mess during that time. Like, I was just a hot mess. And, like, one by one, a lot of my friends around me were getting industry jobs. And I was still sitting here, like, at one point, it felt like me and, like, a few other friends were just like, yeah, we're destined to never make it. We'll be together at least. We have each other. Which is great, like, having friends that are also like, yeah, this sucks. The experience that we're going through is not, like, it's a specific type of experience of like sitting there watching friends get industry jobs, and then you're just sitting there still working and not knowing how you're going to break in. And then each of us ended up breaking in completely different ways. So, and it's like, I think like once I stopped thinking, oh, I have to do this by a certain age, it got a little easier to just kind of write for fun again, not just write what I thought was marketable or write what I thought a studio would want to see or write what I thought other people would want. Because the thing that I ended up getting my first job with was something I just had fun writing, and it wasn't just to get a job. It was just, I thought it was fun and I thought people would like it.
Sure. Yeah, I think that goes back to like what I said a minute ago is like, you know, people can sense sincerity. Like they can probably sense when you're trying to shove a square peg in a square hole, you know, like they can see that as well, you know.
Yeah.
But when you're writing something that like comes from your heart, they can probably sense that as well, you know, but that you had fun doing. What was the thing you wrote that helped you get your first job?
It was I wrote this pilot in a spec script called Accidental. It's actually on my Twitter page now. I put it up as an example of people who are interested in doing pitch Bibles but don't know what the heck they are supposed to look like or what content's supposed to be inside. Mm-hmm. And it got turned down from every studio, so I was like, I'll never use it. It's fine. But yeah, I put it on my Twitter page for people to learn from. But the pilot for that, even now, years later, continues to get me work, which is really cool. And it's one of the reasons that I continue to work, because people really like it, and the concept of it and the characters. So yeah.
You did one of the things I always suggest people to do, even when they're just pitching shows and show concepts. It's like, regardless if they like your idea or not, part of the reason you pitch is also so they get to like you. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure in the interviews also helps, but also they see something in your material, especially your personal materials, like, oh, she has something working for her. Like, there's ideas working there that we would or might be relatable to other projects, which often happens with writers and artists too. It's like, well, your design's not, maybe your thinking for the design's not here, but like there's someone we can pair you with and help like elevate other material.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've had that happen a lot where it's like, we're gonna pass on this, but I actually think like the way that you write action sequences would be really good for this show, or like your comedy sense matches this tone of this show perfectly. So I think we're gonna put you on there.
Nice.
That's very common. That's why like persistence matters so much. It's not just about like, don't feel personally rejected when you don't get that one job at one time. People will call you back if they feel like, no, we don't like.
Spite is a hell of a motivator. I won't lie. Like getting shut down a lot, it helps. It definitely is like, oh, you'll see. You're gonna hire me eventually. Like it's definitely like, yeah, you're like sitting in a dark alley just watching, just like, you're gonna give me my shot. Dang it. Yeah.
I think it's also a clever thing to do is when you're in a rut or going through kind of a depression. I think that's actually a really like people think it's actually a perfect time to write or to create, because you can literally just put those emotions into something and it'll still, even though it won't be happy or make everyone laugh, it'll still hit, like it'll still hit certain strings for people, you know?
Yeah.
Like I've created like my best like drawings out of times when like I was just like, I just finished crying my eyes out, you know?
Yeah.
Pictures, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I tend to put like, it's kind of weird because it's like I feel like I put any emotion that I'm feeling. Like I could start off writing something super sad because I had a really rough day, and the beginning of the script will start off super depressing, and then like it'll drift into comedy because I'm in a better mood, and I'm like, this tone doesn't match anymore. Like I have to go back through this and edit because this just isn't the same project anymore. I need to fix this now.
But at least you cheered yourself up.
Yeah, it's like I cheered myself up, but it's just, yeah.
Right. That actually that makes me think of a question just about writing process in general. I want to get into like the shows you're working on now, but before we do that, I'm wondering how much pre-planning goes into your writing, because I have a couple friends that are writers as well. Some of them like pre-plan like for weeks, where they like write bulleted list and they write like synopses, and other ones just write cold turkey where they just start and just go and then edit later. So like
those people are madmen.
What's that?
I said those people are madmen.
Oh yeah.
Just do it? No.
Yeah. I have a friend that does that actually, and he's made maybe like 4 or 5 short films, gets into festivals and everything, and he just says he writes cold turkey.
And now it's time for me to leave. I can't. No, I'm one of those people. I'm a very logical thinker, and I'm very analytical. I need to have everything plotted out, or I can't start writing at all. Like I have what I'll do is I'll write I have like a little notebook that I write the log. I'll write the name of the rough idea of what the name of the project is going to be. Mm-hmm. I'll write a log line, just 1 to 2 sentences about what the overall theme and story is, and then I'll write a full synopsis of like from point A to Z, like what that story is going to be. Okay. And then once I get the synopsis, I make a full beat sheet.
Can you explain what that is?
A beat sheet is basically a step-by-step guide of what the important story elements are going to be, what those important actual beats. So like if I'm walking to my fridge, it's like basically stand up from my desk, open the door, walk to the kitchen, open the fridge, like those important things. And then I go back later and I will like fill in the blanks. Like I have that general idea when I create the beat sheet, and then I'm like, okay, well, I know the story is that I need to go from my room to the refrigerator. And then I'll fill it in like, okay, I need to stand up, swing my chair around, walk to my bedroom door, open the bedroom door, close it, and then like the actual in-betweens kind of fill it in. It's kind of like if you think about like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like, how does he get, like, you know that he needs to get into space. Yeah. What are the steps to get there? It's like, oh, okay, he's with his mom at the beginning of the story. His mom passes away. He runs outside. An alien spaceship abducts him. That's how he gets into space. So it's like beat by beat, those important things. You don't really need the dialogue too much. You don't really need the specifics about like what kind of spaceship takes him and what town it's in. You just kind of have to have that idea of like, those are the things that happen. And I usually create one of those. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll drop that beat sheet into my writing program. And then I'll usually write the interior, exterior, the scene location. And I'll break it up per section in my beat sheet. And then from there, I'll start a new line, write that entire scene, and then delete that beat from my script.
Interesting. Wow. These are, because I'm a very like meticulous thinker as well. I try to think very logically and compartmentalize. So like, you know, sometimes I have trouble when I'm writing, like just about how to get to certain points. So this is actually helping me. I've actually I've been taking notes this interview actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, it really helps. I've learned, like when I don't do a beat sheet, I realize that the flow, which is a very real thing with scripts, is broken. Like if I just try to write without doing a beat sheet, sometimes the flow of my story is just not good. It doesn't read smoothly like I want it to. Or I realize very late that I've missed a very important scene or a very important moment that like really hit that theme of what that story is, or a character development moment. Like I feel like if I have a beat sheet, then I can sit there, look through everything and be like, okay, these are the things that need to be introduced. These are the character quirks that definitely need to be introduced because this really matters. And I feel like it makes everything just feel right. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes it more cohesive. Like even if little like going to the fridge and opening the fridge end up not in the final draft, like you know that's in your mind now, and you can kind of see it more clearly.
Yeah.
When the final product is finished, you're like, okay, so at some point he did these things. Some of these got trimmed out, but when you're looking at it as a whole, it all feels more cohesive.
Yeah, and then you also can. It helps you. I had a teacher very early on that would read my scripts that would be like, do not add scenes that do not need to be there. Do not add things that do not need to be there. That means dialogue, action, any of that. Like, don't just write a scene just because you think it'd be cool or that you would like it. If it doesn't have anything to do with the overarching story, just don't put it in there. It doesn't make sense to. You're just adding link to your script for no reason. Sure. If you can't justify why that scene is there, just don't have it at all. And so I'm very like, I write my scripts very tight.
Yeah, so you edit down to the syllable, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So it's appreciated, especially when you have to direct or board the thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Dude, I wish...
If you work like that, you just add later if they say that you need more, you know?
Yeah. It's I know everyone always says, oh, it's easier to cut, but like I try to avoid that because then it's like especially board artists, they have to draw all of that. And I've made that mistake with a board before where luckily it was my own brother at the time, but I did an episode and my first time like sitting in the room, they're like, do you have any notes? And I was like, that whole part doesn't work. I think if you did this, and this, it'll help. And I had to make him draw like his entire beginning of his board over. And he just looked at me with like this pure sibling hatred of just like, I will kill you when we get home. And like, ugh.
Yeah, happens in the industry.
Yeah, so it's like I feel like I've made it a conscious decision to not overdo things or put anything in. Also, I feel like when I go to board meetings, I'll be like, hey, don't feel the need to put this in, like especially this like gag stuff. I'm like, if you can think of something better, to go for it. If you don't want to do it, just take it out, dude.
Dude, that's great. As a production, I appreciate that wholly. You know, because there's a lot of money and time wasted.
Yeah, story from the Rick and Morty.
What was that, Brian?
Yeah. No, I was just saying, story from the Rick and Morty pilot about that very thing, which I'll tell later. I can't tell on the podcast.
Oh.
Designs I did Rick and Morty that were like I spent hours on, and then they're like, oh, by the way, you don't need to continue finishing it because the whole thing was cut. And I'd be
Yeah. Oh no.
I mean, that's the whole show, but it started on the pilot, and that. And
the ultimate test for a writer, I feel like, is writing on a 3D show. Like I wrote on I've written on 3 now, and when assets are a thing, like I was so used to Craig, where it's like, create a new character, don't worry about the props. Yeah, just they'll just draw it. When I got to a 3D show and they were like, we don't have enough assets, we can't create new backgrounds, we can't create new characters, we can't create new items. It was like,
it's like, I imagine it's like writing with a toy chest, and it's like, all right, just dump all the toy chests, like write with those. That's all you get.
Yeah, I feel like that the writing prompt started coming in handy. It was like, okay, I only have these things.
That's what I was thinking of. It harkens back to the 6th grade writing prompts where there's an astronaut on Mars. All right, write about that. So you're very contained in what you have to write about. So it kind of comes close, which is pretty cool. It's like you
already have that main story that you have to stick to with those characters in the story that the creator wants, and now you have to like figure out how to make it happen without creating anything new.
As a production person, I like that. I wish we could do that on 2D. That's nice. So let's move into like some of the shows that you've actually worked on professionally. So we've talked about you worked on Craig of the Creek, and you said Battle Kitty, but can we take a couple steps back? So what was the first? So you said you got your first gig via talking to Man of Action at the Emerald City Comic Convention. What show did that lead to?
Ben 10.
Oh, nice. What's
the 2016 version?
Okay, cool. 2015 version, you said?
2016, yeah.
16 version of Ben 10, nice. And did you work in studio for that, or did you work like a freelance base?
Freelance, and then I didn't actually go to the Cartoon Network building. I was working from it's weird, I went and signed my contracts at Cartoon Network, but I had to go to the Man of Action studio to actually get the handout and everything for the episodes.
Gotcha. And did they already have like a script picked for you at that time and everything?
It was basically like, here are all the premises. Choose which one's your favorite. And then I just like read through each of them and was like, okay, I want to do this one. And then we sat there for like, I think an hour, and we discussed like all the possibilities of what I could do, and gave me like a strict like byline. Like Ben 10 is definitely one of those like made for toys type shows. So it's like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like Ben definitely has to be the hero. He has to be the lead of the show. Gwen can't step in too much. We had to stick to specific aliens because the toy companies are already making those toys. It was very specific. So I basically got the lowdown on like all the things I was allowed to do and all the things I had to stick to. And then it was like, okay, but have fun. It was like, okay, cool. And got that out of the way. And then I just went and wrote it at home.
Nice. Cool. So you were a fan of Ben 10, right? Like you watched it growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what was it like? How did you feel when you got a job writing on the new Ben 10?
It was weird. I was like, because Ben 10's been rebooted so many times.
Yeah.
And so it felt like, it was like, wait, another Ben 10? What? And then and I was like, are they teenagers again? Like, is this one kids? And it was like all new art style, which threw me, because the Ben 10s in the past had been very similarly styled. This was like the only one that didn't look the same. And it was like live action movies that already came out too, which is nuts. So it was like, I felt like I was working on like, I don't know, it was kind of wild because there's so many versions of it.
Yeah.
Even now, the fact that I'm like, I worked on Ben 10 2016. Like, even if you look it up, it's Ben 10 in parentheses 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But it was interesting. It was fun.
That's cool. I mean, not a lot of people can say they got to write on even if it's a different iteration of a show that they were a fan of as a kid.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Nice, man. So what was did that lead to more Ben 10 shows, or what happened next?
I ended up what did I do after that? By that point I was going to a lot of mixers, and I had met a lot of friends that worked in the industry, so I was going to like a lot of like animation people parties, which happened before the doom of lockdown. And like there would be like these group of friends that would always get together, and they'd go to the beach and have all these different like events that they would do. And they were kind enough to invite me, and I met a bunch of people. And one of the people that I met when I moved here got hired as a board artist on Craig of the Creek. And they were looking for new writers. And she was like, oh, I actually have a friend who's a writer, as long as you don't mind that she's not like seasoned, like she's only done freelance on one other show, but it's also a Cartoon Network show. Like, I don't know if you care. And it was Craig of the Creek. And luckily, Ben and Matt are such nice guys. Like, they were completely willing to give a no-name, non-seasoned writer a chance. And they brought me on for a few episodes, and I was like doing freelance with them for the first 2 seasons, which was super fun. So yeah, it was honestly just a friend who just broke into the industry and got a job, like had been working on the show for a few months, like very early on, and was like, oh, you guys need a writer? I know someone. And I was like,
what did your friend do on the show? You might have said it, but I might have missed it.
She was a board artist.
Oh, board artist. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And you met her, you said at a mix, you were going to mixers and stuff. Is that where you ended up meeting your friend?
We met, I think we originally met through online comics. Like, I would read her online comics. She definitely didn't read mine. They were bad. But I was a fan, and I would reach out and be like, oh, I love your stuff. And then when she moved here, it was kind of like friends, and like my brother, who's also in the industry, would like invite her to stuff, and then we became friends. And then we got close.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. Was that Sabrina? Sorry.
Your brother's in the industry too?
Yes, my brother is unfortunately in the industry.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
What does he do?
He's a board artist. So he's, we felt like we have different last names, so we were escaping it for a while of no one knowing that we were related. And then we got hired on the same show together, and people were like, oh, you guys are related? What? We just thought you were good friends. I was like, no, we're sadly related.
Your brother just fucked this up, because now they're going to think all black folk in this industry are related.
They are. Brian, we're not related?
Not related, apparently.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Maybe we...
I wish.
I don't know. I might got family in Jersey.
Yeah, that's true.
Did it make the like your passion a lot more fun, or whatever, having a sibling also into it, and then also trying to break it down?
He's like super chill. He doesn't pay me any mind. Me, I'm the second child, so you know that I'm the second child and the middle child, so I have to be competitive and a total shit about it. Like him, he sees me and he's like, oh, good job, like you're doing your writing thing. And me, I'm just like, I will defeat you. It's just like I'm Vegeta, he's Goku. Yeah. Yeah. So
it's good that it gives you like a bit of a healthy competition there, you know, which is nice.
You would think, but I feel like to be competitive, 2 people have to both be like wanting to beat one another. It doesn't count when it's just the one. It's just like,
no, that's called
unrequited. Like, yeah.
Called the vendetta.
And just be like, oh, I was on it first.
Yeah, people ask us like, oh, he's older than you. Did he get you in? And I'm like, I will kill you. I will find where you live and pour hot coffee on your lap, sir. Please don't ask me that. Which is why, like, as soon as I got an offer to leave Cartoon Network and go to Netflix, I was like, I'm out of here. No one will know that we're related at the studio. And then,
what show did you get a call out for Cartoon Network? I mean,
sorry?
What show did you get a call at to go to Netflix?
Battle Kitty.
Oh, that was Battle Kitty. That's not Unikitty, right? Something is Battle Kitty's is that Mau Mau or is that something else?
No, that's also a different one.
Oh, there's so many kitty fighty shows.
Unikitty is based off of the Lego movie character, and it's at Warner Brothers. And then there's Meow Meow that is done at Titmouse, but it's a Cartoon Network show. And then there's Battle Kitty, which is Netflix, and it's not out yet. I don't know when it'll actually come out. But it's at least announced because it's based off of Instagram shorts. So you can find the Instagram shorts through Matt Lazel's Instagram. And watch like cute little clips and get like a taste of what the show is going to be. Cool. But it's not actually out. So
Battle Kid.
But it's pretty cool. It's been announced. It's a CG show.
I recognize that guy's art style.
There's one picture on Cartoon Brew. It kind of like reminds me of Gumball a little bit, like the face. I don't know why. It just does.
Yeah, it has that kind of aesthetic. Yeah,
it's interesting because I mostly saw it in 2D on his Instagram, and I was like, oh, I love his shorts. They're so comedic. And then like when I got on the show, and they're like, yeah, it's not gonna be 2D, and I was like, what?
Weird.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's not gonna be 2D.
It's so funny when you search it on Google, you see actual like pictures of cats with like Photoshop like battle stuff.
Just battle stuff.
Yeah.
I would love if it's just like a D&D level, just a cat person. Just it looks like Caravan Palace like music video. It's just a bunch of cats like fighting each other. Yeah.
Great. I'd pay to see that. So Battle Kitty was that? So you started on, what was the one you did before Craig of the Creek? Oh, Ben 10, then Craig of the Creek, and then Battle Kitty. Was that the order?
Yeah.
Nice. So Battle Kitty was that the first, like, I guess Ben 10 was action. Craig of the Creek was more. It was more like less action and more like
fantasy, kind of grounded though. Yeah.
It's grounded with a bit of imagination fantasy, right?
It's all through like the imagination of like through a kid's eyes. Yeah.
And then Unikitty is again action, but it feels like it has a more like absurdist humor to it, right?
Yeah, Battle Kitty is.
Oh, Battle Kitty. Sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know how much I can say about it. Is the thing.
Yeah. If you can't say
like
anything.
it's announced, but I'm like, I don't know how much they actually released about it, like what kind of show it is, or I mean, if you see the shorts, it's very comedic. It's very like his shorts, like Matt's shorts, they're hilarious. They're super goofy, very much like Gumball or SpongeBob, but also like sometimes he does more like Adventure Time stuff on his shorts. Like they're very funny. I would definitely suggest going and watching through all of them.
Yeah, I'll do it. Oh yeah. What's the guy's name again?
Matt Lazell, M-A-T-T, and then Lazell, L-A-Y-Z-E-L-L, I believe.
I might even follow him already on Instagram. I'll check it out. That's pretty cool. So it was less of an action show, more of a comedy show this season.
It's I guess, yeah. They're very close to what he has on his site. Like they're very goofy, and it's such a fun show.
What do you enjoy writing more? Do you like action? Do you like more like the grounded fantasy stuff, or like what's your forte? Or do you like just like doing all of it?
I prefer action, and I won't lie, I'm like super. I will go for anything fantasy or sci-fi. Like I love action movies though. Like I grew up on watching like anime and just like any Jackie Chan movie or. Like when The Raid came out, I lost my mind. I was like, "What is this?"
That movie is perfect. I love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. Or like Samurai Champloo. Like I love Samurai Champloo.
Yeah.
So like anything action, I automatically drift to. But most of the time, I feel like the things that are out right now, it's usually like a mixture. So I end up writing action comedy things, which I don't mind either. I feel like comedy is harder to me because like. I'm more like my brain automatically wants to go to a verbal joke, and I'm like, oh, it's animation, go physical with it. Like, what can I do to make this more physical, and not just have the character say something stupid. That
makes sense. Yeah. It's like Family Guy, where it's just like talking heads making stupid jokes.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how long were you on Battle Kitty for?
I don't actually know. How long was I on Battle Kitty? Like 8 months, I think.
Was
most of the year?
Or were you? I mean, is writing more freelance than it is in studio most of the time?
That's kind of like a thing going on right now.
Right now, obviously with Corona, right? But how about before the Corona?
It was kind of like I had a problem getting staff for a really long time because even though I was I did Ben 10 and I did Craig, but I had done other freelance stuff before too. Like I had written on other shows, and even with those credits, I still wasn't what was considered seasoned enough. Like every time I would go in for interviews, I would meet with people in development and original series and be like, hey, do you have anything that needs writers right now? And they would still tell me that I hadn't written on enough, which is nuts because I did like multiple episodes for multiple shows. And I was even helping at some studios in development, but they were still saying that I wasn't seasoned enough to be a staff writer. Yeah, it sucked.
So explain the difference between like a staff writer and a freelance writer.
Yeah, freelance is basically just you're going to probably talk to the creators or the story editor. They're going to assign you an episode that they probably already have the idea for, or they'll give you a bunch of premises or ask you to come up with premises, which is just like a general idea of what each episode is. And then they'll be like, all right, now go off and write a full episode at home. Give it to us in like a week or two. Depends if it's an outline, which is like the general synopsis of it, or a script. Depending on that determines how much time they give you.
Yeah.
And they're like, go home and write it and then send it back to us and we'll do everything from email from here on out. It's basically what it's like to write in lockdown. And then there's sometimes you also do summits, which means you're going to go and sit in a conference room or a writer's room for like a couple of weeks at a time when you do freelance, and they just want to get as many ideas out of you as possible, like coming up with different episode ideas. And then the staff writers end up sometimes fleshing it out, or might assign you one of those episodes out of all the ones you guys came up with together. But you also get paid significantly less money for freelance, and you don't get paid until you do all the corrections that they ask you to do that's in your contract. And sometimes, like it's taken me sometimes 2 to 3 months to get paid a check. That's not even that much money because it's freelance. And because the writers can't join the WGA, we're in the Animation Guild for animation, so there's not really much we can do about it. And then also, if you write, a lot of shows are doing this thing right now where they want to save money and put most of the money on the art, so they don't want to pay for writers, or they think they can do it without writers. And so they'll hire us to do freelance, or they just won't hire any staff writers at all. And then, so a lot of us are getting paid getting hired for freelance to do 1 or 2 episodes for the whole season. And they're not hiring a lot of us as staff anymore to save money.
So the staff is basically like the people that are like the full-time writers.
Yeah, they're full-time writers. Like, we come into the studio, we get to be there, we get to talk to the board artists, like, which sucks because if you're freelance, you don't ever get to talk to the artists. You don't get to talk to anyone except for like the story editor maybe, and the creators, and the producer, because they're handling like your contracts and stuff. But like when you're in the studio and you get to actually work beside the board artist, you get to ask them what their interests are and like what would they like out of the show and what do they want to see in the show, and what they think the characters should be experiencing. Like, you get to talk to them about the process more, and if they have any questions about the outline or the script that you just gave them, then they can just walk over to you and ask that. They don't have to like ask the creator, who then has to email you or figure it out and have a separate meeting with you just to figure out what that is. It's just easier, and it's like they're not going in blind. They can actually ask for help and discuss the story and get notes when you're like after you're pitching with the writers, or before you even do the pitch. When you get the handout, a writer is there to be like, hey, this needs to be in there. This is super important. Like it's weird not being in there, and I think it honestly affects the board artists, and especially if you're doing serialized, it screws a lot up.
Yeah, I mean, communication is key, right? And with the less communication you have, the more room for error and continuity error there is.
I think they also do for time's sake, because while like the staff writers and everyone on the show is working on a certain amount of episodes, they can be like, it's okay, while we're working on this, we'll have our freelance writers like covering the gaps, like these episodes in between or whatever, or something like that. Like, I'm pretty sure they probably do that too for like time's sake, like schedules.
Yeah. But it's also like a matter of like, you can like during like when production's getting started, when you're bringing on production, you could just be like hiring the writers then, and then just like I'm on I was helping out on a show a while ago for development, and they brought production in. They started hiring production, looking through design teams. And while the design teams were getting like the basic character designs and like building the world essentially like with visuals, they had the writers in the room doing story summits and like getting the whole story out, so that by the time the design team was done getting like the beginning stuff done of like what we needed to have for the story for the board artists to start coming in, that we were already done with the first few episodes, and they were hiring board artists and bringing them on as each episode was approved by the executives, because it also takes a long time for the executives to approve stuff sometimes.
Yeah. Whole other factor of approvals, right?
Yeah, because it's not just the creators being like, yeah, that's a good script. I'm happy with that. Like, they didn't have to send it to the executives, who then have to be like, here's our notes on it. Here's our take on it. This is what we don't like. This is what we don't think will work. You have to worry about S&P notes, which are just essentially notes saying, you can't do this. This is a kid's show.
Yeah.
That sewage water cannot be green. Yeah.
Well, why can't it be green? Because there's poop in it?
Definitely can't be brown.
There's poop. Yeah, it can't
Definitely
be
can't be
brown.
brown.
Or this
Wear
is
seatbelts. Why aren't they wearing seatbelts?
Yeah, for sure. Was that Sabrina?
I was to say, or this is owned by this company, so like you can't say the word Kleenex or something.
Yeah. You can't say apple. You have to put a pear.
Yeah, I put a pear instead of an apple. Interesting. So wow, there's a lot of red tape,
1.5.
that stuff, which I wasn't privy to. I cut you off, Brian. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I was just gonna say, on season 1.5 of Teen Titans, we got away with murder, as far as BSMP not paying attention.
Yeah, when I first got to Netflix is very much creator driven for the most part. And when I got there, like, I've worked on multiple shows there now, and I'm just like, oh, well, I know we can't do this. And they're like, why can't we do that? And I'm like, well, like, they can't say heck, and we can't, like, have blood, and that character can't die. Like, we can't have the character say, I'm gonna kill you. Like, I know. And they're like, yes, you can. I was like, what? And they're like, no. So, like, every studio is different. Like, Cartoon Network's very strict about saying certain things.
Well,
and Netflix was like, we don't really even have S&P. I was like, oh.
It's not the studios, like you said, it's broadcast standards. So Netflix doesn't operate under broadcast standards. It's streaming and online web, which there are no standards for. Back in the day when it was just television and cable, you had to worry about commercial advertisers. Mm-hmm. Netflix doesn't have advertisers, so they don't have to, so they can have a kid show if they say like poop in fucking hell. It's like, well, who's gonna get mad?
Yeah, I don't know if they think fuck, but
yeah, that's of course, yeah. Like, big cursing is just a no, but
there's really nothing stopping them outside of like getting an angry note from a parent.
Yeah, like you can literally get away with murder on your show. Like, it's great. The first time I was able to kill a character in any of the shows that I was working on, I was like, I know if I would have stayed at any other studio, I wouldn't have been able to decapitate anybody. Like, this is great. Like,
that's cool.
Wait, what show
realize, did that actually happen?
I can't say.
Oh, is this thing that you're working on now that you can't talk about?
Yeah, too many secret. I feel like most of the shows that I've worked on they're still NDA. I can't talk about them, sadly.
Hey man, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
Age.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, I guess we can't wait to see them come out in the next couple of year. All right.
I was gonna say, like, just hit me up and, like, give me, I don't know, 5 years. I don't know how long it'll actually take to make all the shows that I've done in the past, but, like, I don't know. Hit me up in 5 years, and hopefully all of them will be out, and I'll actually be able to say what I meant through most of this.
I mean, that's the thing about writing. Like, you guys are the first people to touch it, but with animation, it's like it takes 18 months to make an episode, right? So, like, you write it, and then like 18 months later, you get to see it. It's like there's such it's the longest gap between start and finish for the writers. Rather than a storyboardist or an artist or something like that.
Yeah, it's really sad too, because it's like you start, like, everyone gets brought on and you, like, love working with everybody, and then it's like you leave. You just have to leave. You're the first one, and it's just like, bye, writers. Yeah, it's like, no, I don't want to leave. Like, I went to a new crew at Netflix, and I felt like I betrayed them. Like, I shouldn't have went to another show.
That's funny.
You get over it.
They give you the stick from across the table.
Yeah, they're just like, you're in a new building now. It's fine. Don't look at us. I'm like,
Are we getting in any questions yet? Because I know Ant's got to wrap.
Yeah, I'll wrap. Yeah, I have to wrap in like the next 13 minutes. I think it was my birthday this last week, so my girlfriend's making me a birthday dinner.
Happy late birthday.
Hey, thanks.
Well, if any want question, we'll take about 3 questions.
Sure.
We haven't had any questions yet, but I guess I can ask we usually ask our guests to, like, wrap things up in a, like, cute little, gift.
A
bow and everything.
Then you put a cherry on top.
Yeah.
What would be like the biggest piece of advice to write for anybody?
If you didn't, did you hear what she said? I know she was breaking up for me, but
yeah.
What would be your biggest piece of advice for anybody who wants to write for animation? Like, what would be your like magical words?
I would say study how to do outlines, because that was something I struggled with when I first got to animation writing. I thought that everything was script driven, and I was completely wrong. I had to learn how to do an outline. They were like, yeah, you know how to do outlines, right? And I was like, yeah. And then I just kind of I asked a friend for an outline because they were already writing on a show. I was like, can I get an outline? I don't know what an outline is. Like, I don't. And they're like, dude, it's just like a 3 to 5 page like synopsis of the entire episode. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Is there any like standardized way to write an outline, or is it literally just paragraph by paragraph?
It depends on the, like, I don't know, like the show. Like sometimes I've had like creators be like, could you break it into acts? Like I really want it into acts so it reads easier. Some shows I've worked on didn't want paragraphs. They just wanted like a line, like a beat sheet essentially of everything with a little bit of dialogue sprinkled in. It depends on the show, case by case basis. But yeah, learn how to write not only scripts, just outlines too. Try to really, really focus hard on physical humor, not just witty dialogue and banter and stuff.
Yeah, for animation especially, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Did you always want to work in animation as a writer, or did you ever want to do live action as a writer as well?
I'm a type of person where I didn't really care, to be honest. I was like, I just want to write for television, and I know I want to write for television. Whatever the platform is, I don't really care. I just want to write for a living.
You seem to really love animation growing up. Like you loved anime, you loved Ben 10, you loved Courage. Like, so it seems like you fell into something that you could enjoy. Because I know some people that write in animation that are doing that. You know, they want to be like the next big script writer that writes the next Kubrick film, but they're writing animation. They're kind of like about it. But like I know
a lot of friends who are on different shows who tell me that they have writers. Okay, this is my biggest piece of advice. If you are a writer and you're working in animation and you do not like writing animation, you don't respect animation, you don't want to be here, and you only want to write live action, quit, do everyone a favor, and give people who actually want to be here that opportunity to write an animation. Because honestly, you're just making the board artist miserable. You're making the whole production team miserable, and they don't want to put up with you not knowing about art and giving your opinions. There we go.
That is amen. Like,
no one ever wants to deal with someone who wants to do a job just to get to something else. Like, everyone always feels screwed over in some sense. Like, if you're gonna do a job, like, actually show that you care what you're doing in that present moment. You know, even if it's a PA job.
Yeah.
For sure. Right. What was that, Brian?
It is the hierarchy and the separation that's created. Well, the sad part of it is the hierarchy and the separation that's created. Like when I was on the Looney Tunes show, the writers were working there, but even when we didn't talk to the writers about anything. So these people specifically came from live action and wanted to work in live action, but were working on the Looney Tunes show, which is all mostly physical humor. So whenever we'd adding physical in the yeah, this is the Looney Tunes show. This is basically the sitcom-y one where they lived on the cul-de-sac. Yeah. So obviously, but like we write in like physical gags, and then we pitch those with the based on the script that they gave us, and they're like, "Nah, take all the physical stuff out," and we're just like, "Oh, this is boring."
The physical stuff is the best part. Like if you watch something like Gumball, that doesn't work if you want to make it like I don't know, The Office. Like that does not work. If you're gonna make a show like Gumball, it has to be the physical humor. Like the funniest parts of that show are those facial expressions and that physical humor. Like I don't know, I don't understand it. I never understood it of like why are you here if you hate it so much?
Yeah, I was perfectly willing to work with them because like clearly I don't do the dialogue. I'm not witty with the banter, but like it has to be a symbiotic kind of thing. It'd be nice, but that doesn't always happen.
For me, like the minions don't even speak a language, and half the time they speak gibberish, and they're slapping each other. It's freaking hilarious.
Yeah. There's a reason Charlie Chaplin was really popular. Like it's all about that physical humor.
Yeah,
it's
for
like,
sure. Which
I
is
don't
where
know.
a lot of the early cartoons drew from. Like, you know, obviously Felix the Cat was basically Charlie Chaplin. Bugs Bunny was basically Groucho Marx. Like, those guys were all about physical slapstick humor. Like, they told their jokes and their stories just by their movements of their body. Like, just the way Groucho Marx walked was funny to look at, you know, and that translated obviously over to shows that we grew up on, like Animaniacs or something like that. You know, like those things mean a lot, you know, those little bit visual cues.
Yeah. And yeah, like those are important. I don't know. I don't know why anyone would be in animation and hate it the entire time. I don't know honestly how you can, because it's so much fun, especially like when as a writer, when I get to see something be made, like I get to see all the pre-vis work and like all the boards finally come together. I get to see the pitch meetings. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I didn't expect it to come out that way. And it is a team effort, so you can't have like an ego about them changing something. You have to just like let the artist do their thing and know that they're just trying to make the episode better, and then just let it go. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your favorite show you ever worked on? Because I know you're still relatively. How many years have you been in the industry? About 5 so far? 6?
2016. So yeah, 4.
Like 4 or 5.
4 years.
So I know you're still relatively new to the industry, but what was your favorite show you've worked on? And if you can't talk about it, obviously that's cool. But do you have a favorite?
Oh man, it's kind of bad because it's like I do have a favorite, but I also feel like guilty because I feel like any other showrunner I've ever worked with, if I don't say their show, is going to be like, what the hell? Why didn't you say my show? What was wrong with my show? What was going on with my show? You didn't like it? I'll never hire you again. That's fine. I'm just like, oh God. Honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, okay, let me start off by saying I've loved every show I've worked on. Except for one. I won't say what it is, but I loved every show except for one. But my favorite is the one I'm currently doing. I can't say what show I'm doing right now, but the show I'm doing right now is great. And the only one that I disliked is because I'm not the biggest fan of preschool shows, and I really needed a paycheck. I won't lie.
Nice. Hey, sometimes you got to do it. So wait, okay, you can't say what the show is, but can you say why you like it so much?
The creators have such, or the creator for it has a clear vision of what the product is, and it's basically a lot of heart from multiple people going into one project. It's kind of just not like it's different than a lot of things that are out right now, which I think is good because I feel like change needs to happen more in animation.
Yeah.
I think it's just like the everything about it excites me. Like the art excites me. Seeing boards from it excites me. I don't know. It's just
exciting. I mean, you're talking a big game. I can't wait for it to come out now. Whatever.
Yeah, when it comes out, I'll be able to hopefully just be able to post it and just be like, hey, so remember I said I had a favorite show I've worked on? This is it. But also, I don't know, because I've worked on 2 in the past that I'm also very proud of that, I don't know. They're not the same as this one, but they're definitely shows that also will change the animation game for the better, and they make me super happy to see.
Also non-NDAs right now?
They're NDAs, yeah. I can't. It sucks. I feel like the last 5 projects I've worked on, I can't talk about.
That's all good. So, sorry, go ahead.
That's the thing. Writers have a tighter structure behind that because they're so ahead on the project.
Yeah.
Like I can talk about things. So I'm like, it's already been announced. So I'll say whatever I want.
Yeah.
You guys are like a year or so, even more than a year ahead of it before it's announced, like 16 months. So, would you ever want to write for adult animation, or are you really enjoying doing kids animation?
I won't lie. I think the reason I really like kids animation is mostly, or animation in general, is because I mostly like younger audiences. Like I'm the second oldest of 6 kids and the second oldest of like 21 grandkids. There's a lot of kids in my family, being around a lot of kids growing up. And I feel like I kind of like, at least right now in my life, I'm geared towards a lot of things that I didn't get to have when I was younger that I really wanted. Mm-hmm. And so I think that my goal right now is to create things for like my younger siblings or my younger cousins who want to see those things, and not just diversity, just certain stories that haven't been told. And I think so. A lot of kids and like young adult stuff is the things that I primarily write. So even if I did ever do, like even like live action, if I ever did live action, it would still just be for kids. Like I think like kids and teenagers, like especially teenagers, there's like no there's a whole demographic there that I feel like we in animation are missing out on, because it's either preschool, there's like the bridge shows after preschool, there's the whole 6 to 12, and then there's just adults. Like there's no
I feel like there's definitely
and
that
you know why,
big
right?
jump, like cinema.
Yes, I know why. I've tried to get away with writing so many things for teens. My manager comes back and it's like, no, this is not going to be marketable. We can't sell this. Nobody's going to want it. And I'm like,
Yep. And what's fascinating about that's why anime specifically has cornered that market so hard.
Yeah.
Because they didn't produce under those restrictions.
Wait, well, I'm a little in the dark on this. Why is there no teen demographic, Brian?
It doesn't sell toys. Teens don't buy toys.
And
adults have money to buy merchandise.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. I mean, that sounds dumb to me, but okay.
Yeah, but once you think about it, like the shows that are doing really well, like shows like Riverdale, the demographic for that is not what you think it's going to be. It's supposed to be aimed at teenagers, but it's actually like early 20-year-olds or like 50-year-old moms in the Midwest. Like that's the demographic for like people who watch Riverdale, or like people in their 30s who are watching it ironically. Like I have a lot of friends who watch it just to laugh at how bad it is. Yeah. And those people are the ones who buy the merchandise for Riverdale.
Tom Riffle downstairs watches it, but he's a big Archie fan, but he recognizes it's a terrible show.
Nice.
As long as he knows.
They pin the a lot of the actors to be like the men to be heartthrobs or the women to be heartthrobs, and it's one of those shows that everybody likes to watch because they like to have their like heartthrob.
Yeah.
Sure. Like it was like One Tree Hill back in the day, Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
It's all
Pretty
that
Liar, stuff like that. That's why I'm excited about things more like Percy Jackson, I heard, is getting a show now. And I'm happy. I hope that they actually keep him 12, because if they turn him into a teenager, I know it'll just be hyper-sexualized trash.
Yeah, sure.
But we'll see. I don't know. I'm hoping more movies like that are coming out, or like even shows like that for actual teenagers.
Yeah, like fun, exciting shows made for teenagers that aren't cynical and nihilistic.
Yeah.
Or hyper-sexualized.
Yeah.
Those are rare. So Sabrina, do we have any cues coming in at all?
We have a couple. Are you
I'm good for now. Yeah, I'm just chatting on text with my girlfriend, and I'm good for now. It's all good. No worries. No one's gonna sleep on the couch.
Nick said, "What's the weirdest script to animation translation you've seen happen?"
Script to animation?
Yeah, the weirdest translation.
Oh. Wait, translation? Like like IP?
You didn't expect. Like you wrote it one way and then it was animated another way.
Oh,
yeah.
I've never actually had that happen a lot. I think it's always like really small things, like or like I'll get the note ahead of time and they'll be like, "This is good, but also you have to rewrite this entire thing and change the entire thing." But I'll get it pretty early on, and that might just be the fact that I've worked with like really good story editors, like either on Craig or Battle Kitty or anything, like, or the creators too. They'd be like, "This is good, but this ain't it, Chief. Go rewrite that." So I've never actually had that happen, and maybe it's also just maybe to save the storyboard artist the headache of having to rewrite my entire script or outline. So
that makes sense.
Jacob, I don't know how to say your last name. Damon's? I'm sorry if I butchered that. Jacob asked, "I want to write for animation, but I don't live in LA. And so I've been applying to fellowships like Nick Writing. But besides that, is there a path I could take? I'm collaborating with friends and whatnot on an independent project, so that's a start, I guess."
Yeah. There's like the ABC and Disney writing program. Those writing programs are so freaking hard to get into. I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't even get into them, and I'm now working in the industry. I have a lot of friends who've been submitting for years and still haven't gotten in. And I would just say, honestly, mixers are really good. Like I used to go to, like the Perkins mixer, and then I used to go to like there's like for Black people there's like Black and Animated that holds mixers, and they would have like a lot of industry professionals at those mixers who can sit there and help you. Like they'll basically have recruiters there to assist you.
But those mixers have been primarily in LA or around LA, right?
Yeah. There's also like forums that you can find. I know like a lot of people are starting Discord chats for different people trying to break into the industry. You just have to probably search for them. Twitter has a lot of groups for writing people. Like if you look through groups, they have different ones. Honestly, I'd say the easiest way is to just produce your own work. Like doing comics. Like my brother got his first job from making his own comic book and producing it and putting it online. Like I said, I used to do short films and I would submit them into festivals. Keeps doing workshops. There are and also I know like it's hard to produce your own projects when you don't have money. There are oh God, what are they called? They're people who give you money for
financiers.
No, God.
Oh, God, not scholarships.
Yeah, they're not scholarships, but they're
grant.
Sponsors?
No, they're like basically you write into them. You write into them and they give you if they like your story and your ideas, then it's something like sponsorship. They'll give you the money to make it, and then as long as you enter it in a certain amount of film festivals, like you're good. I can't remember. God, why can't I think?
Grants.
Yeah, grants. They're called grants. Look into grants. Grants will help you with your projects. I did a whole short film. The one that I won when I was in college, the short film, I got that money through grants. There's also places, I don't know if Five Below still does this, and I'm sorry for all the Five Below employees that I'm now probably going to have people annoying you if you see this. But Five Below, when I worked at Five Below, they used to have sponsorship programs where they would fund your projects. Like it has to do something with social, like society, and you have to be like trying to have like a message behind it, but they used to do like sponsorships. But yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice I think is just making your own thing. That's how you get noticed. Like have your own, like get on. I hate social media, but I'm on it because it's really good to meet people. I would say just honestly meet people online and get close with them, become friends with them, genuine friends with them. Don't just go for a showrunner and be like, want to be my friend because you might give me a job. Like actually just meet other writers and stuff online. Like I started my own writing group when I moved here so that I could meet people who wanted to be writers, and then a lot of those people started working in the industry, and then I started working in the industry, and we just kind of helped other people who were in our writing group. And it also keeps you like on your toes and practicing, and it helps to keep you motivated and for people to hold you accountable. So I would say, like, honestly, reaching out to people, especially right now in lockdown, meeting people online is not the weirdest thing in the world. Go online and reach out to people, like in writing groups. Facebook has a lot of writing groups, a lot of animation ones too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of different paths. Like everybody's path is not exactly the same, but I mean, as long as you're continuing to create and continuing to produce stuff, write stuff, and try to put your name out there one way or another, hopefully, like if your stuff is good, eventually you'll get noticed.
Like, if you have enough work too, you can find like a manager. You can submit your work to managers or literary agencies, and they can also help you find work if they like your material enough.
Mm.
I want to like tell people to stop limiting themselves mentally, like that they have to live in LA to make it big. Because like if that's a desire of yours, if you want to move to LA and like experience the Hollywood life out here and like, you know, what it's like to work in studios out here, then sure, like, you know, have that be a goal someday. Like I know Steffi, she was talking about before how like she actually desired to move to LA, but some people, they think of it as a way that's like holding them back. Like, oh, if I don't live in LA, or if I can't move there for some God reason, whatever, then I'm never going to make it. I just want to tell everyone to stop thinking that way and limiting their whole
people. Yeah, because they put the cart before the horse, and the most important thing, even Shakira says, like she was writing before coming out here. I'm like, you do, even if you're an artist, you do your work, and then people will discover you. Like I know people like a guy I know, Kaiser Karan. He's been drawing from DeviantArt for years before he came out here and got a job for decades. People found that person's work and was like, oh, this person's really talented. And then it makes it even easier. But as long as you're pursuing your passions will carry you forward to whatever career you end up in.
Yeah, it's definitely that thing of like opportunity meets like preparation. Like you have to have the work done before you try to jump in. And honestly, I think I was like even when I was submitting for the writing program for like Nick and Disney and ABC and all that, like I was doing that from when I was living in like Pennsylvania and Georgia, like every time wherever I was, like I didn't get here, especially like when I was done with school. I was out of school for 2 years before I moved out here. And then moving out here, honestly, all it did was make me struggle more financially because it's so expensive here. I had a 2-story condo, 4-bedroom, 3-bath in Atlanta for $900 a month with the washer and dryer hookup. And a front porch. I moved here. It's painful to live here, man. Like, especially like lockdown. Take full advantage of like working remotely during lockdown. Like, just take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah,
it hurts to pay rent here. It hurts. I don't even I have to go get quarters to do laundry.
It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I've been inside a box, and then like to hear that you can like basically own a freaking mansion in another state. I'm like, why am I?
My mom and stepdad had a 3-story house in Pennsylvania for the price that we pay for a small 2-bedroom apartment in California. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah. You know what? I was just working I'm working on a pilot right now, and one of our artists is freelancing, and he recently moved to Costa Rica, and he works remotely. He works at Cartoon Network as a color stylist. Titmouse he's worked at, and now he's worked at Starburns. He's been there for a couple of years now, and he's getting consistent work as a color stylist. And he just lives him and his wife or girlfriend just decided to move to Costa Rica because they like it there.
Yes.
You know? I have friends in Japan who like work for Cartoon Network, so they're like, it's
possible now. It's possible.
I'll give people the real dirt on that though. You have to be good, or people have to know your work or you, because there's a lot of people who submit remotely who will not get hired simply because they're not local. I've seen it happen multiple times, just for writers, for artists. So it's your contact base definitely matters on that a lot. Like most of us have already done the work before. The other half of it, you have to be like the best. And it's like, it doesn't matter where you are. I want to work with that person.
Yeah. Well,
I would also look into studios like where you are too. Like, because Atlanta's really been growing, especially if you're in, I don't know, I guess it depends if you're doing animation. Even in New York, like if you want to live in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, those states are very close to each other. And there's animation studios like Silvergate, and like, you know, other animation studios there. Don't just think that the main animation studios are Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, Netflix. Like those are not the only places.
Texas as well. That's where Powerhouse is. They did Castlevania. Leica is in Seattle, and I know there's smaller studios around there as well. There's probably someplace close to you. You don't have to necessarily come to California or Los Angeles, but I know the tide is changing because working remotely because of COVID is impossible. So don't
there's
give
also
up
like starting
I'm
off
just saying,
elsewhere too. Like I've had friends who started off doing commercials, like 2D and 3D animated commercials, and then they built up experience at these small like mom and pop type commercial companies, and then they ended up working on like Archer in Atlanta. So like, yeah, I would just kind of look into what's happening around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it always goes back to just keep doing your craft and keep busting it out and promoting yourself online as much as you can and in your own community. If you can't make it to like, because that's the foundation of your entire like livelihood. Is, do you have the skill? Do you have the passion? If you got that, then you're fine. You know, no matter where you are in the world, you're gonna make it happen somehow. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think we found out a lot of. Do we have any other questions before we wrap up, Sabrina?
I think we're gonna cap it off there. I don't think we have any like super deep questions, any more deep questions.
Nice.
So I think that's a good point to close off.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I mean, like I said earlier, like I'm in the midst of pitching a few projects myself, and learning about just like how you go through your writing process, like that honestly helped me a lot. Like I have a lot of stories in my head that I have issue fleshing out, and I'm gonna definitely heed some of your advice right now. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go back and listen to this and like go to the chunks where you were kind of explaining that and try to and reverse engineer some of my ideas that didn't quite come out the way I wanted them to. So hopefully this podcast was for me.
Yeah. Also, if you're looking for another program to help you get your ideas out, use Miro.
Miro?
Miro. You can basically, you can draw in it, you can drop sticky notes in it, you can make storyboards and connect story arcs. It's basically like, it ends up looking like one of those big investigation boards where everything's kind of connected, but you can do anything in here. And it's like Brian's like, I know it.
It kind of helps connect all the little fragments, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
You can draw, like if you want to just draw a picture, you can drop pictures in there and make like a mood board for what you're going for. Like it's everything. Nice.
That's awesome. I'll definitely check that out. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to check that out as well. Yeah, some of the other things you dropped before, there was another program, what was it called?
Writer's Duet.
Writer's Duet, yeah, right here. Writer's Duet, I'm going to check out, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to check out as well. So thanks for dropping those names. That's pretty exciting. So in general, I think this was like an incredibly productive, informative interview that I think a lot of our listeners who might not be as artistically inclined and still want to work in animation, they have the ideas they want to get out. Maybe some of them are starting to boil in the back of their head, like, oh shit, I could be a writer. I have these ideas I want to make. I can't draw, but I want to make these ideas and I want to see them on the screen. And who knows, some of those gears might be turning and they might be taking the next step shortly. So I'm sure you gave a lot of really good pointers to those individuals. So we appreciate that. Is there any other anything else you wanted to add to our listeners out there, Shakira?
Just keep going. Don't quit. I know everyone says that crap about like don't have a plan B, but like sometimes the plan B kind of gets you in your head and you get caught up in that plan B whenever something goes bad. And I have not had a friend who's ever had a plan B and actually still kept going. So I would say genuinely just push forward, keep going with it and keep working. Like, don't stop. I know it sucks. And sometimes it feels like you're never going to get there, but just keep going. You could be 40, just keep going.
That's great advice. I mean, one of the greatest things that I took away from this interview was like the initiative you had, like you actually, it was like do it yourself attitude. You were like, you learned stuff on your own. You went forward on your own. You found out the right people to talk to, and you like moved forward into the industry, like by putting yourself out there and by taking initiative. And I think that's definitely very important advice. So sometimes we look over to Brian and see Brian's words of wisdom at the end of our podcast, since Brian's been in the industry the longest, and we see what he got out of the interview. So Brian, do you have any words of wisdom to wrap us up with?
Oh man. But yeah, I think some of the most important lessons I got from your story is the fact that like you had a teacher early on who was super helpful. And one thing we didn't get to ask or really discuss, like, were your parents
supportive?
Yeah.
Endeavor?
My mom has always, I mean, up until I moved out here and I was struggling, she was like, oh, are you sure you don't want to maybe do something else? But for the most part, she was still very like, just do it. Like, you can do it. I believe in you. And then it was mostly, that normal parent concern of like, are you sure? Like, this is a little rough. I'm scared. But yeah, she was mostly supportive.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Supportive parents, supportive teachers, encouraging your art, and then simply always doing it. Don't stop doing it. And also don't let the fact you can't afford college or moving to LA be a deterrent, because those aren't the only avenues for success.
For sure. Yeah. All really important. Well, Shakira, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. It was great having you on here. I definitely learned a lot. I know I keep saying that and being selfish, but really, thank you so much for giving advice. And it was so good, like diving into your writing process and learning about like the way you did your breakdown and the beat boards and stuff. I think that really helped a lot of people out there listening. So thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you explaining your ass to us animation success story again. Just in case you forgot what that meant. So appreciate you telling us all about your ass. So thank you so much for that. It was great having you on here. It was very inspiring for a lot of people, I'm sure. And where can people find you online?
Good question.
Nowhere. I'm a enigma. No. You can find me on Twitter at Shakira Pressley. That's all the. I guess I have Instagram, but I'm going to be honest with you. I won't usually add people back if I haven't met you at least once. So follow me mostly on Twitter. Yeah.
Cool. At Shakira Pressley, guys. Follow her on Twitter and keep an eye out. She's going to be doing a lot of great stuff in the future, I'm sure. Awesome. So thanks so much, Shakira. It was great having you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for all the viewers out there watching. We'll see everybody next time right here at the Animation Success Stories podcast in the
Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. We don't say please subscribe. I know a lot of you guys like hop in, watch who you want to watch, and then you just like, share, subscribe so you can have more content like this. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm bad at promotional.
Yeah, so thanks everybody.
Just
we'll see you guys